Hello and welcome back to my channel, Brit's Book Club. If you're new here, my name is Brittany. Welcome, and I like to talk about fantasy books. Today's video is going to be about the 8 fantasy series that I want to read. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. I definitely have more than 8 fantasy series that I want to read. And of course, not included in this list are fantasy series that I want to finish that I've already started. This list is also not in any particular order. With all of that being said, let's just jump right into the list. So first up on my list is actually a book series that I have read the first book for. However, I have not read any of the rest of the series, and this actually may come as a bit of a surprise, and that would be the Mistborn series by Brent and Sanderson. So I've read the first book, The Final Empire, but I had started book 2, The Well of Ascension, but I couldn't get into it as much, and so I put it down and I never finished book 2 or 3. I also have not read any of Mistborn Era 2. I want to give the first Mistborn trilogy another shot, and I want to continue on to Era 2, because as the Sanderson's Cosmere starts making more and more connections within the universe to one another, I keep feeling like I'm maybe missing something by not having read the entirety of Mistborn. Series number 2 on my list is the Chronicles of Prydain. So I'm not 100% sure that I'm saying that correctly, but this book series is a children's high fantasy, and it has 5 novels that follow Taryn, the main protagonist. Now, when I was a younger child, I absolutely loved watching The Black Cauldron, Disney's The Black Cauldron. I watched it all the time. It was my favorite animated film. And then I found out pretty recently, within the last few years or so, that animated film was actually based on a book series, and that is what this book series is. So I want to read this book series because I loved The Black Cauldron, and I want to get more of that world and relive in that moment. The third book series that I want to read is the Lightbringer series. So I have not read anything by Brent before, but I've heard very good things about Lightbringer, and what compels me the most about this series is its magic system. There is a magic system based on the spectrum of light, and the Lightbringer series is about the Prism, who can use all of the different light magic. I have heard that Lightbringer has some content in it that I may not like as much, but with all of that being said, everything I've heard about the series, even with the content that I may not like as much, makes me want to read it, and so I'm very interested in reading it and have that on my list of fantasy series to read. Next on my list is the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. So this book series is another one that I've had recommended to me a lot. I have heard that Abercrombie is very good at writing characters, and that all of his books are usually very character driven. So I'm not someone who really needs a character driven plot or a character driven story in order to enjoy a book. But that being said, I always love it when the characters are really well written. So I've heard that Abercrombie is very good at this, that the First Law, even though the first book may be a little bit slow, you don't really understand what's going on, that the series itself is fantastic. So I plan to read that in 2021. And I really hope that I like it, because I've heard such great things about it and I really want to like it. Next on my list is Shades of Magic by V.E. Schwab. So I've not, again, a lot of these authors on this list I have not read anything from. And so some of these picks are picks that I'm choosing specifically because they have interesting premises and I want to dive into this specific author. I've not read anything by Schwab, and I really would like to read some of her other books as well. But I thought that maybe Shades of Magic would be a good place to start, because even though I'm not super into urban and portal fantasies, like I've mentioned in some other books, the portal fantasy in Shades of Magic sounds really, really interesting. basically there are different Londons and you can travel between the different Londons. And so everything about it kind of has me intrigued, even though it's not my normal cup of tea. And that makes me want to read it even more. My next pick is The Demon Cycle by Peter V. Brett. Now, something about me is that I love supernatural stories if it's about like demons and things of that nature. I'm not huge into ghosts, but I really do like demons. I don't understand it either. Some of my favorite anime have been about demons. Inuyasha, Demon Slayer, Nura, and Dororo, for instance, just to name a few. I love those anime more than other anime, and the focus, of course, in those is on demons. And so Demon Cycle by Peter V. Brett sounds like it would be right up my alley. It is completely focused on these demon creatures that only can come out at night, and kind of a battle between humanity and demons. And so it sounds like something I would gobble right up. And so I would love to read that also in 2021 in order to kind of dive right into this series. So my next series is going to be one that's very familiar to a lot of you, I'm sure. And it's kind of one of those things where the author, Terry Pratchett, is one of those names that even if you've never read anything by him, you know, especially in the fantasy world, but not even just in the fantasy world, just in the literature world in general. And so I thought that reading Discworld by Terry Pratchett would be a great way to jump into his writing. I've not read anything by him. I really want to. And I thought that the Discworld series, people rave about it all the time. I know there's a lot of different books in it, and there's a lot of different places to start, I think. I've heard Colors of Magic is like where you should start with that, but yeah, if you know where to start with Discworld, please tell me in the comments, because I do plan to read that series as well. I kind of want to just like understand what everyone is always raving about when they talk about Terry Pratchett. And the last series that I'm going to include on this video today is the Inheritance Trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. So I really want to read more Jemisin. I've never read anything by her either. I think I already have the first book of the Inheritance Trilogy, so it kind of made perfect sense to just start there. But I also really enjoy it when a book series has a pantheon of deities. So that is something that I am interested in based on her book and what her book series seems to be about. But those were my 8 series that I'm kind of picking out right now, as these are fantasy series I really want to read that I haven't read before. Like I said, I made out a whole list of series that I hadn't read in the fantasy genre that I was interested in, and these were just 8 that I pulled from it because I had this huge list, and this is definitely not all of them. But I'm going to start with these 8. So if you have read these 8 fantasy series before and you love them or you didn't like them and you have some commentary on whether or not I should read them, I would love to see that down in the comments. If you wouldn't mind just leaving me a little bit of information about your experience with these different series so that I kind of know what I'm getting into with some of them, I would super appreciate it. I probably won't start another big series until I finish The Wheel of Time, which I'm hoping to have done by March. I think based on my reading progress with it so far, I'm on book 7 and I started in September. So I think with my progress so far, I could probably be done by March. And so after I finish The Wheel of Time, I will start a new fantasy book series that I haven't read before. And it might be one of the ones on this list. But if you have recommendations, especially from these 8, of which ones you think I should start after The Wheel of Time, I would love to hear it. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day and that 2021 will be wonderful to you. So thank you so much. Bye!